Water. Earth. Fire. Air.
Avatar: The Last Airbender might easily be passed off as a Nickelodeon cartoon that has little to offer. But if you move past the quirkiness and adolescent puns, there's substance to the themes of the show. Not only does it demonstrate the negative effects of imperialism and war, but it can also offer specific insights into topics like environmental justice. The third episode of the third season, titled The Painted Lady, demonstrates both the core principles of environmental justice and why it's important in an industrialized world. Today, I'm going to use this episode in order to explain the fundamental tenets of environmental justice and show that it's a crucial movement in a world of harmful environmental change. The episode centers around a rural fishing community living on a lake polluted by a Fire Nation factory upstream.
We're a fishing town. At least that's how it was before the factory moved in. Army makes their metal there.
Throughout the series, the Fire Nation are painted as villains with the imperialistic ambition of conquering the other three nations. In this episode, we are confronted with the atrocious conditions in which the villagers must live, including mutated fish, constant sickness, and heavily polluted waters, all of which are the direct product of toxic waste pouring out of a nearby Fire Nation factory. And this story is all too familiar to the environmental justice movement. Environmental justice draws from the civil rights movement and seeks to redefine the environment as a place where one works, plays, or lives. In doing so, the movement creates a new environmentalism that rejects a separation of nature and humanity, and instead focuses on the interconnection between the two, ultimately ridding itself of the conception of nature as Eden and redefining it in locally and contextually applicable ways. It draws connections between emissions from chemical factories to higher rates of asthma in nearby low-income communities, or the influx of lead poisoning as a result of racism by Flint City planners. And so the environmental conditions forced upon this small fishing village in Avatar are a prime example of what the environmental justice movement tries to combat. Conditions that unfairly destabilize a village whose culture and livelihood depends on the well-being of their immediate surroundings. The episode shows that when the health of an environment is damaged by pollution from factories, it is ultimately the people and communities who have the least means to defend themselves that suffer. Not only that, but the episode also hints at the connections between colonialism, consumerism, and environmental racism, issues that environmental justice seeks to fight and has outlined clearly in its collection of principles. The Fire Nation factory exists to build the nation's war machines, which in turn fuels their violent conquest of other lands. Yet, the fishing village lies within the borders of the Fire Nation, acknowledging that the industrial output of war machines destroys not only other communities, which in Avatar's case is the massacred Air Nation, but also their own. But Avatar is still a show geared towards kids, and thus is limited in what it can do, which means it fails in certain spots as an analogy for real-world environmental justice issues. It's never as simple as taking a day to clean up a river. In most cases, as Barbara Lynch points out in The Garden and the Sea, U.S. Latino Environmental Discourses and Mainstream Environmentalism, communities of color such as Puerto Rican communities in New York City face a number of different polluters and systems of power that stymie efforts to get justice. For some Puerto Ricans in New York, as Lynch writes, fishing is integral to their identity. But fish populations are dwindling in New York City's coastal waters not just because of one factory upstream, but instead from many waste streams and overfishing. So the root of the problem becomes much harder to see and subsequently more difficult to solve. Issues like environmental racism affect countless communities across the country, a fact that even the EPA has recently confirmed in a report on the subject. But this kind of community destabilization through environmental harm cannot be solved by heroes simply destroying a factory, which the episode demonstrates.
I kind of destroyed their factory.
The army's gonna blame the villagers. They're headed there right now to get revenge.
And the environmental justice movement recognizes. Instead, environmental justice calls for a decentralized, regional, and local approach to solving environmental problems. In a way, Katara inspiring hope in the village through the local painted lady spirit is on the right path. But environmental justice tries to find ways that create change and leadership from the communities outward, rather than enforcing change inward. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoy videos like this, please consider taking a moment out of your day and support me on Patreon. For as little as $2 to $3 per month, you can help me make more and better videos on environmental issues. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.